Engineer 775. We're looking at the EG4LLs. I know a lot of people have purchased these batteries and have had really good performance out of them, really good feedback. I've heard from not only customers, but installers, distributors, so they've performed really well. They've sold massive amounts of these batteries, Signature Solar has. So I said, I gotta try them. So I bought a stack of 6. I bought the rack. Now the rack is super nice. It actually came assembled with casters. You can get it unassembled without casters for a little bit less money. And the screens just went off, they timed out. And so it's just a really nice setup. The bus bars on the side, just so you know, we have flipped them over. We actually had this installed, and video for your future. Well, I'll talk about EG4 inverters, but this video is about connecting the EG4 LLs or the EG4 Life Powers to a Sol-Ark 15K. So right now we're connected to a 15K, and I put in the settings that the EG4 requires for charge and discharge and voltage settings, and so we're up and running. We're about to do some load testing. And so I basically I'm going to turn the solar off, I'm going to turn the grid off and just run on these batteries and see how it runs my home. And I've got like 5 200 amp panels being fed through my power shed through a 100 amp breaker and a series of transfer switches everywhere. So right now the battery is topped off. I'm selling power back to the grid and charging the batteries, running the house. You know, we've had a lot of nice batteries, but when it comes to installation, the racks have been so aggravating, or a lack of a rack, and this was so easy to install. All the hardware came with it. They slid right in, they fit well, and that might not be a big deal to you, but when it comes to installation, that is a big time saver. This is the fastest battery rack combination that we've ever dealt with. The only thing I don't like about it is these 3-inch rubber knockouts. For some reason they did these, and so it's kind of weird. I wish they left it solid and then you could knock them out, punch them out for whatever you're doing for your cord grips or Romex connectors or cable glands, but they did that. They did it on the bottom as well. We ended up just making our own, took a receptacle cover, a generator cover, and screwed it to the rack, and with a plastic bushing just for some protection on the battery cables. So that's probably the only thing I don't like about the rack. So it's lockable, it's slick, it's super nice. All right, enough of the rack. But if you've gone through the pain and suffering, you will understand. So for overcurrent protection, if you're connecting this to another inverter, you can use a different type of breaker if you need to. You can get these if you're hooking to an inverter that doesn't have battery overcurrent protection. You can get these nadir breakers that are 200 amps and at least break the positive. So not doing that on that, I'm doing that on the inverter above, but that's another story. So let's do some load testing with the EG4 LLs and the 15K Sol-Ark. Let's take it off grid. So the first thing I'm going to do is what I've done is turn the solar off, and now I'm going to turn the grid off to this. So I've got a grid shut off right here. I'm going to take grid power off, and we're going to see what happens. Grid is going down, and to see if the EG4 holds the load, and it is. So grid went down, I took the solar off, and I'm just running on the batteries. Not a huge load, but that was pretty seamless. And what I love about the 15K, it is seamless. I don't have any light flicker. I can do all these crazy things. Turn solar on, throw 13 kilowatts of solar at it, turn the grid on and off. It's just smooth, and I don't have an issue. So now I'm running my home on a 15K with the EG4 LLs. Let's look at each battery with the load that it currently has on it. I don't know exactly what I'm running, some air conditioning and things. I'm going to turn some water here. So I'm pulling 10 amps out of each battery, not a problem. Discharging, piece of cake. So there is so coming soon Potentially, there's going to be the ability to closed loop communicate between the EG4LLs and the Sol-Ark inverters. But until then, it seems to be fine without closed loop. So let's put some load to it. All right, so I'm gonna have to go into the house, turn some things on, and get some real load going. So remember, I started with what? Around 3.5 kilowatts I'm up to now. So let's go do something. Okay, now I've turned the grid off, and I've got Elijah in the house turning loads on, and we're trying to communicate back and forth. So we've ramped up, got clothes dryer on, I believe, or we're running hot water. And see, our current went up from 10 amps to 25 amps. And I'm going to keep adding load to the house. So strictly on batteries, as you can see, pulling about 8 kilowatts out of the EG4. Remember, all these numbers divide by 6 because there's a stack of 6 batteries. And everything's pretty smooth. So no solar, no grid. There we go. He's moving. He's doing something. Oh, there he goes. He just hit it. So he went up to 11.3 kilowatts of load. So I'm assuming that is my clothes dryer and my water heater. How many amps are we pulling? I bet it's about 42. Oh, 38 amps. So not too bad. And we're just seeing what we can do. We're going to overload. Oh yeah, we overloaded. Okay, during our load testing, the battery did great, but what I did find is that I had to follow the manual. So my first manual, because this was a beta version, didn't have how to wire this up. As you can see in the 15K, you have two 200 amp breakers. They are bused together. But if you just run one home run, there's a limitation on how many amps you can get out of the battery. So when I was loading up the EG4, I actually tripped this breaker because I only had one 4-aught cable. So there's a couple ways of doing this. You could run 2 sets of 4-aught, which is kind of ridiculous for ampacity. I'm trying to give you 900 amps worth, but you don't need that. The inverter is capable of 275. So in the manual, it does show how to you need to connect these or share the love between these terminals so that you do not trip the breaker and you can get the full capacity of the inverter. Another way would be to use a combiner, a bus bar, to combine the outputs. And while I was testing, I also, well, two things. I realized on these, in this rack, which is fantastic, you can flip these bus bars 180 degrees, and that can help you with, just from old school battery wiring techniques, making sure that you are charging and discharging equally across and through the batteries. And I see a lot of these server rack type mounted batteries where everybody is just connecting either to the top or the bottom, and what happens is that the flow of power, if you're connected at the bottom, you get a lot more, it's uneven, the charge and discharge. So the bottom batteries are working more than the top batteries. A little bit, not a lot. It does spread out pretty quickly, but I don't think that's a good practice. I think you should diagonally connect across these bus bars. But I was getting, at least 5 amps difference between the bottom and the top. So I actually have the battery cables, they're both hooked to the bottom, so I'm not following my practice, but the reason I did it is to see the difference in the amps coming in and out of the battery. So that's one thing. It's nice that you can flip the bars and bolt them in. I would probably do 2 sets of 2-aught for each EG4 stack like this, not 2 sets of 4-aught. It's expensive. It's obviously harder to work with, and but definitely not having any voltage drop. So I just had 2 sets of 10-footers here for our own supply, so I just used them. So I would recommend 2 sets of 2-aught home runs to split the load between the 2 breakers that are parallel in the 15K to get the most out of it. So it's been doing great. Again, the only load testing issue I had was nothing to do with the battery. It was how I had it wired to the Sol-Ark. So that was not in the original manual. And I said, oh, they're bussed together, no problem, it'll share it, but it doesn't. It puts all the load on one breaker if you go over 200 amps. So we were running over 200 amps continuously, and it finally kicked the breaker. And so my bad. and I needed to look at the latest greatest manual. So now that I understand that, just wanted to pass that along to you. Make sure you use all terminals, otherwise you're not getting the full off-grid capability out of the 15K. All right, so EG4's done great. Don't have any issues with it. Somebody asked about replaceable BMSs. I do not think, I've asked them, but I do not think you can replace field service these batteries and replace the BMSs. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the last answer I got. So for EMP mitigation, we do not necessarily recommend this battery because I don't know how to fix it, or not fix it very easily. So that might be corrected in the future. I know we have a new LL coming out. I should have it here today, and I'm going to set it on top of the cabinet and connect all together, so there'll be 7, and then that BMS will control the stack, and I should be able to connect it to the 15K. Still working on that. So anyway, the combination is great. The price point is hard to beat. I don't know, I think they've put out 50,000 of these batteries last year. So there's a lot out on the market, a lot being tested. I've again talked to other distributors of this battery, and they have had very, very few returns as compared to other batteries. So that's good news. And I won't keep talking about the rack, but it's simple, it works, and highly recommended. So the combination of EG4 LLs and the 15K is a awesome combination. So whether you're using the inverter for time of use, zero export, you can use that battery as however you want. You can go into your time of use settings and basically work through that. I usually do it on the app, not on the screen, and figure out which times I need to best use my batteries. But you can totally do that with the EG4s, or as I'm in right now, I'm in grid cell, and sun's just waking up, so it's early in the morning. I'm actually selling back a kilowatt, not using a lot in the house, so things are just coming alive. And so I took the battery charging parameters out of the manual, and that's what I'm charging the battery to. So it's just fantastic. The 15K is still super impressive with its 200 amp bypass. Just really like it. It has solved a lot of problems. So if you have any questions about this combo, let me know. It's a really good one. So the inverters are doing well, the batteries are doing great. And again, Sol-Ark doesn't care which battery you work with. They're pretty much battery agnostic, as they've always said. So I've tried a lot of different batteries, and then the lithium iron phosphate families of batteries, they all work. So, you know, we've got Fortress, Home Grid, EG4s, some other new Rubik's batteries, Arc batteries, lead acid batteries. We've tried a lot. They all seem to perform well. This battery has a 7,000 cycle rating for it, and it has a 10-year warranty, which is pretty impressive. So anyway, let me know what you think about that, and it's just working great. And we'll talk to you later if you need help in designing a system. Happy to help you there. And if you can't get in, our consultation services are booked out a few months, and that's aggravating to a few people. So just send us an email and we'll work you in somehow, some way. All right. Appreciate all the support, and we'll see you folks. If this one goes out, I'll see you at RE Plus out in Anaheim. And yeah, I'll be hanging out at the Sol-Ark booth, but no, I'll be at every booth. I'm taking the whole week to just collect as much information as I can. This inverter is going to be debuted there, and we'll see all the battery folks, and I think the folks from EG4 will be there. So I'll be talking to a lot of you fellow solar nerds out there. So look forward to seeing you. Take care.